this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Work can be a little weird. Cringy training seminars, coworkers who won't stop talking about their plant, forgetting the mute button at an inopportune moment. We have to deal with a lot on any given workday. Sometimes it can feel hard to thrive and move forward in your career. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in. LinkedIn helps you get ideas and insights from experts in your field, connect with people professionally, grow your network, and access tools designed to help you find the right fit for your next role. Whether you're just getting started, figuring out your next move, or looking to accelerate your career, LinkedIn is built to support you at every stage because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more.
Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments that matter, for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. Built for the busy days that turn into all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken.
Yeah, the times you're deep in your flow and the absolute last thing you need is an auto update throwing off your momentum. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to the way you actually work. Built with a long-lasting battery so you're not scrambling for the closest outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it.
That's right. They don't build tech just for tech's sake. They build it for you. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/Dell PCs. Built for you.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh Clark. There's Charles W. Chuck Bryan over there, and Jerry's not here, but we're going to make it through somehow. In this edition of Stuff You Should Know, I'm going to call this one, Chuck, the Icarus edition, because we made it through the Sun podcast just hanging on by our fingernails before. And through just an astounding act of hubris, we're going to do another Sun-related episode.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of this stuff in the Sun one.
Yeah, we did, but I don't think we went anywhere near into this kind of detail. So I'm feeling okay about redoing this.
Good.
Doing something that's like kind of a redo a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know. Are you feeling okay?
I'm feeling great.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I don't know if I would say I'm feeling great, but that's good that you are at least. So we're talking about the sun, believe it or not. And we're talking about a specific thing on the sun called solar flares, which you may have heard of, but you may not know much about unless apparently you've already listened to our sun episode. But we'll talk a little bit about solar flares. But one of the things that I think is extraordinarily interesting about solar flares is they belong to a larger category called space weather. And I am just as jazzed as can be about the idea of space weather. Aren't you?
Not as jazzed as you, I don't think, but I do think this is pretty neat stuff, and I'm glad we're getting a chance to make it more clear than we did before. Yeah. That's a good point. I'm sure we talked about this before, but it's probably extremely confusing. So yeah, we're going to clear all that up. So space weather, especially stuff that comes from the sun, comes mostly from the surface or the atmosphere of the sun, which is extraordinarily active. It's extraordinarily hot. So hot, Chuck, that the surface of the sun is made of plasma, which a lot of people consider the fourth state of matter. It's like a gas, but it's a special kind of gas that where the particles are as jazzed about being alive as I am about the idea of space weather. That's right. They're supercharged, and when they are moving around, they create something called magnetic fields, not the band, the thing.
Man.
Even though it is a great band name and a great band.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to, magnetic fields have their own effect on all these particles and what's going on up there.
Yeah, so the energetic electrons that have been stripped from the atoms, creating electrons and ions, which have a charge, they create magnetic fields, and then the magnetic fields they create have an effect on them, so that they tend to follow these magnetic field lines. But the stuff is so energetic and so hot that the magnetic fields that develop aren't like this kind of orderly lines that keep their distance, nice and tidy, like you imagine like a magnetic field to exist like. These things are like roiling, curling, twisting. It's just a big orgy of magnetism up there.
That's
Yeah.
the only way to put it. That's it. I had no choice but to say it like that.
Yeah, and then this stuff is going on. It's called solar activity, and it depends on when you're observing the sun. It's going to be more or less active. There's a cycle. It's called the solar cycle that happens about every 11 years when the magnetic north and south poles switch, and within that cycle, there's something called a solar maximum, which is the period kind of where the biggest show is going on.
Yeah, there's also a solar minimum, but the solar maximum is, we're in solar cycle 25 apparently, and the solar maximum is coming up in 2025.
That's
very
right.
appropriately. And so as we're reaching the solar maximum, there's going to be a lot more of what people call sunspots. By people, I mean astronomers, of course. And sunspots are these kind of darkish areas on the surface of the sun. They can be little tiny dots. They can be kind of big, but they look really, really small, and they look dark. And the reason they look dark is because they're relatively cool compared to the rest of the surface that's around them. But even still, they're super duper hot, and they're still pretty bright, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, like a sunspot is about 6,500 degrees Fahrenheit, because we're talking about the sun. So cool is a relative term here.
Right.
And as far as bright goes, that's about 10 times as bright as a full moon. So if you go out at night in a full moon and it kind of feels like a little cool daylight, a sunspot is about 10 times brighter than that.
Right.
So you shouldn't go looking at these things.
No. That's a really good thing to say. Is like, we're talking about a lot of stuff that's going to make you want to look at the sun. Don't do it. Just go online and look at pictures of this stuff on the sun, or videos even. We have videos thanks to the good people at NASA. But those sunspots, so it really just goes to show you how hot and bright the surface of the sun is, that these things seem cool and dark by comparison.
And huge.
Yeah, and they are really, really big. So the width of them can get to be up to 30,000 miles across, which is about the width of Neptune, which is huge, or about 4 times the width of Earth. And still, they look super dinky compared to the sun. And the reason that these things are cooler, Chuck, is because they're spots of magnetism that are so strong that they keep the heat inside the sun from poking out right there. That's how strong the magnetic energy is in these areas.
Yeah, and that's right. And because they're magnets, they form in little pairs, like little buddies. And they appear on the surface of the sun. And what we're actually looking at, if you can like go to NASA or whatever, like you said, and see a picture of a sunspot, what you're looking at is sort of like the two ends of, if you think about these magnetic lines, they're these magnetism, it's like a filament, like a rope. Just picture them twisted up, basically, running beneath the sun's surface. And there are some really, really cool pictures of this stuff. And then one end of this sunspot is positive, the other end is negative, and they sort of act like rings of a tree a little bit, as far as astronomers can like observe these things. The first sunspots of each cycle are in the mid latitudes, and then they start moving around during the cycle, so they can kind of see where you are in the solar cycle by where and how many of these sunspots there are.
Yeah, so the closer to the solar maximum you are, the more sunspots there are going to be, and the closer they're going to be to the equator. So they tell a lot about where the sun is in its solar cycle. But the thing is when these magnetic field lines twist and curve and turn, they actually can interact with other magnetic field lines. And when that happens, when they cross, kind of like the proton streams crossing in Ghostbusters, when that happens, something called a solar flare happens. It's an event on the sun, and it is such a huge, magnificently energetic event that it actually can affect Earth, things on Earth, because it's just so massive and such a huge release and sudden release of energy.
I had a Ghostbusters ref penciled in later on, if you believe that.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
It's been a long time when we both have two, or we both have one each.
Yeah, it has. And it's been a while since we listed dates by the years before or since Ghostbusters came out.
Mine has a date attached to it. You'll just have to wait.
Good. I can't wait. What a great episode this is shaping up to be.
So these explosions, the magnetic fields are driving these explosions. And if you're lay people like us, it's, you can either look at this as something that's kind of simple to look at on its surface, or if you really want to get into it, it's pretty complex and not easily understood. But the simple answer is, because we're talking about magnetic fields, is that these adjacent fields are pointing in opposite directions, and they basically wipe each other out. And that releases all this magnetic energy and all that heat kind of everywhere that surrounds it.
It just goes spew, 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 energy, heat shooting at you from the sun, right?
Sure.
So people have figured this out finally. That has to do with like the lines of magnetism interacting with one another and annihilating one another. But there's a big mystery attached to this, or there was for many, many years. And that is that, okay, so we understand magnetic annihilation, but to this point, we thought it took about 10,000 years for two opposite magnetic fields to annihilate one another. Well, we're talking about here, these solar flares, they annihilate one another and release all this energy in a matter of minutes, maybe an hour sometimes. So that doesn't quite jibe. And I think back in the 50s, some scientists started proposing a type of magnetic energy release called magnetic reconnection. And that is where magnetic field lines are so twisty, turny, writhy, and energetic that they can actually rip a field line, or like a magnetic field line can rip apart and then reconnect with some neighbors. When that happens, it's called magnetic reconnection. And they think that that is the kind of energetic release that would account for a solar flare.
Yeah, and this can cause all kinds of problems for things in space and for people on Earth even, which we'll get to that stuff in more detail a little bit later. But the point is, these things are super hot. They burst out to the sun's corona, which, if you remember from our sun episode, that's the outermost atmosphere of the sun. Mm-hmm. Rarefied gas is all over the place out there. And it has, this is super, super hot stuff. Like normally the temperature in the corona is about a few million degrees Kelvin. But inside that flare, we're talking 10 to 20 million degrees Kelvin. And we always like to think of things in terms of either Big Macs or hydrogen bombs. Yeah. And in this case, it's got to be hydrogen bombs. The amount of energy released during a solar flare is about, it's millions of 100-ton hydrogen bombs all at once.
Yeah, all at once. That's a really important point too, And I feel like a real schmo for not having calculated that in Big Macs.
I don't know how you
calories.
Would. That's got to just be size.
No, you could do calories.
Yeah, but what's the calorie of a solar flare?
I don't know. I didn't look, and I feel like a jackass for not having looked.
Well, they go down easy. I know that.
Yeah, they do. So they're big, huge releases of energy, and they're releases of radiation. They release radiation across the electromagnetic spectrum, and that includes the visible light spectrum. So these things just turn into these enormously bright flares, which is where the name comes from. And we've figured out how to classify them. There's a classifying system for solar flares that's a lot like the Richter scale, in that there's class A, B, C, M, and X. That's not really like the Richter scale. What's like the Richter scale is that each of those classes is 10 times more powerful than the previous class.
Yeah, so like an X is the highest. That is 10 times an M, 100 times a C. Mm-hmm. And then once you get to X, they didn't go Y and Z. They just said, let's stick with X. And then let's start.
Cool.
Sure. And it sounds totally cool. And then let's start attaching numbers to them. So you can have, X 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Yeah, and so, each of those letter grades has a 1 through 9 scale, but X is so huge that X's scale goes beyond 9. And I think the biggest one that they've ever caught so far, that's ever been recorded, burned out the sensors that were recording it. And the sensors were overloaded at X28. And they did some calculations after the fact, and they figured out that it may have been an X45 flare back on November 4th, 2003.
Yeah, this was a big deal. This was it was something called the Halloween storms of 2003, which is kind of a fun way it happened because it was in October and near Halloween, so all the astronomers got excited. Mm-hmm. And this one was a little bit weird because although it was near the solar maximum, it was 2 to 3 years after the peak. And NASA said it's generally a quiet period. So they got really, really excited. There were 17 major flares in that Halloween storm. And it was, wow, that's something that is really going to get the whitecoats pretty charged up.
It totally is. I mean, an X-45, that's just astounding. And I did a little bit of derivative calculation. Technically, it would be a double A5.
Double A5? I saw different numbers too, though. I saw that the sensor cut out at 15, and the estimate was X28. So it's really hard. So NASA even had conflicting information.
I think we should point this out. You just set us up for a COA that I wanted to include. So there's two things. There's a lot of disagreement on exactly what a solar flare is and the difference between that and coronal mass ejections, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's not necessarily a disagreement in astronomy. It's a disagreement among people who report on stuff like astronomy and don't fully understand what they're talking about. So we ran into that quite a bit. So if we get something mixed up, please forgive us. And then secondly, when we're talking about some of these incredible events in physics terms, people who are in the field of physics understand what they're talking about to one another, but they have a great reputation of not figuring out how to explain it to the rest of us. And so they'll put it in different terms. And so when you're researching this stuff, you're like, is this describing a different thing than this over here? Or is it just two different people describing the same thing two different ways because they're not describing it in the true physics way because I wouldn't understand. So we ran into that a lot too. Did you?
Yeah, and it's frustrating to literally see two different things, both from NASA.gov,
right,
on two different pages. But who are we to call out NASA?
I think we just did.
We'll call out Space Force.
Sure. But the point is this, all of that really underscores the fact that our understanding of the dynamics on the sun are still really early and premature. And we're still figuring a lot of stuff out, including classifying the differences between solar flares and coronal mass ejections.
Yeah, and the light show and the fun that the astronomers had in the Halloween storms of 2003 was immense, no matter whether it was X28 or X45.
That's right.
They partied either way.
They sure did. They surely did, Chuck. They had a little bit of peach schnapps and went to bed at 10:30.
Toasted a half a shot of brandy and then went to bed.
That's right. Prove us wrong, nerds. Prove us wrong. I say we take a break and then come back and talk about those coronal mass ejections that I teased.
Sure.
Okay, we'll be right back, everybody.
Hey, everybody, here's a fact for you. In the United States, there is a break-in every 26 seconds, and that means that somewhere right now, an intruder is getting closer. And the problem with most security systems is that they only alert you after the break-in has started, and that's too late.
Well, that's what makes SimpliSafe different. They use alerts. SimpliSafe's U.S.-based live agents, they identify threats on your property and help deter them before they actually break in. So the intruder never gets into your house. The crime is stopped before it even starts.
That's right. And another great thing about SimpliSafe is they have no long-term contracts. They give you peace of mind and great value with their monitoring deterrence plans because they just start at about $1 a day.
Yeah, SimpliSafe sent us a setup years back, and I still use mine every day.
Yeah, and apparently setup, you can do it by yourself in under 30 minutes, so it's a really good value and it doesn't take long.
So if you want to experience the SimpliSafe peace of mind, you can take advantage of the SimpliSafe discount offered to Stuff You Should Know listeners. Right now, you can get 50% off your new system by visiting simplisafe.com/stuff. That's half off at simplisafe.com/stuff. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Work can be a little weird. One minute you're in a meeting that could have been an email. The next you're trying to decode corporate jargon that somehow means nothing. And don't even get us started on the quick sync that turns into a 45-minute deep dive.
Yeah, well, the truth is figuring out your career isn't always straightforward. Whether you're trying to grow, pivot, or just stay relevant, it can feel like you're navigating it all on your own. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in.
That's right. LinkedIn can help you grow your career, helping you confidently navigate your path with insights, ideas, and inspiration from your professional community. You can stay up to date with the latest trends in your field, connect with people who get it, and discover opportunities tailored to your goals, your experience, and what actually matters to you.
Whether you're looking for something new or just trying to grow where you are, LinkedIn gives you the tools and connections to move forward with confidence. Because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more.
All right, so I was saying that it's difficult sometimes to discern the difference between a solar flare, which is a huge burst of radiation across the electromagnetic spectrum, all at once, which, by the way, takes just a matter of minutes, 8 minutes to be exact, to reach Earth, because we're talking about carriers of the electromagnetic force, which can travel at the speed of light. So we're 8 minutes, but at the speed of light from the sun, right?
Right.
Coronal mass ejections are something different, even though they seem to be associated with solar flares in a lot of cases. They also seem to be able to kind of stand on their own, too. Either way, they're impressive in their own right, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were talking in terms of visual excitement, like a coronal mass ejection is like a full-on Grateful Dead concert. Whereas a solar flare is like when John Mayer played with members of the Grateful Dead.
Oh, that's mean. I was going to say it's just an Instagram video lesson of John Mayer teaching you some Grateful Dead licks. Because he does that, you know.
Well, but solar flares are more magnificent than that.
So, man, that's mean. Sorry, John Mayer, if you're listening.
I'm not sorry. Josh is sorry.
He's a nice guy. He apparently has... I've seen some stuff like of him teaching like people how to play Grateful Dead guitar stuff, and it's really, really hard what he's doing. So
sure,
my hat's off
Jerry
to him
Garcia.
Either way. Right. So with man, I feel weird. I just apologized to John Mayer on the Stuff You Should Know episode about solar flares.
You didn't see that coming?
No, I didn't. It wasn't in my notes. So with coronal mass ejections, at least, these are not necessarily just bursts of radiation like a solar flare is. They do have some radiation attached, but their big thing is particles, highly charged superenergetic particles that it shoots like buckshot toward the Earth. At incredible speeds. I mean, they get accelerated very close to the speed of light, not the speed of light. And there's a big difference between the speed of light and close to the speed of light. So it takes about 3 or 4 days usually for stuff that's shot out by a coronal mass ejection to reach Earth. But when these things go off on the sun, they're, like you said, they're rather impressive.
Yeah, like if you were looking at this stuff in with a telescope, and a high-powered telescope, that is. I don't think you could. Well, could you see any of this stuff?
It depends.
With anything you have at home? I mean, I've got a pretty good telescope, but it's for nighttime viewing only.
So with the, I think you can see coronal mass ejections. I think solar flares, you're best with a radio telescope or an X-ray telescope, but the X-ray telescope would have to be outside of Earth's magnetosphere.
Do you have a telescope?
Yeah, we got a telescope. It's not a radio telescope.
No. I just we've never scoped it up in conversation, and I would be surprised if you didn't. But I'm glad to know you do.
We do have one, yeah.
So flares, like if you were looking through an X-ray or a radio telescope at a solar flare, it'll look cool. It'll look like a flash of light. Mm-hmm. But those coronal mass ejections are really impressive. Big eruptions. The height can be many times the size of the Earth shooting out into space, like you said.
And they're kind of like a belch from the sun that actually releases part of the sun.
Yeah.
It's like a bubble of plasma that's just enormous, often billions and billions of tons in mass, just coming right at the Earth, full of these incredibly charged particles. And they're so big, so massive, and the plasma that they're made of is so energetic that they actually have their own magnetic fields, like the sun or the Earth. So when they finally do come in contact with the planet, our planet, weird things start to happen because its own magnetic field and all of the charged particles within the plasma contact our own magnetosphere and then also our atmosphere, which is almost designed to deter the worst effects of those things coming at us from the sun.
Yeah, so our magnetosphere, that's our little first layer of protection. That would be like, although I was about to say like Wakanda's protective shield, that may be more like the ionosphere. Mm-hmm. But the magnetosphere is that first protection, and it's going to kind of brush away as many of those charged particles, these protons that are shooting out, as possible. And because of solar wind, though, it's got a shape to it. The magnetosphere has like a sort of a compressed side that faces the sun. It's got a little dip near the poles of the Earth where some really magnificent stuff is going to take place, as we'll see in a minute. Right. And then it's got this tail end that flows out from the back. And the Earth's magnetic field is going to block these particles from most of the surface. The solar wind is going to push them along toward that tail. And in that dip at the poles is where you're going to see these really brilliant auroras.
Yes, but the magnetism, the magnetic energy from the coronal mass ejection can be so energetic that it can actually push on the sun side, the day side of the Earth's magnetosphere, it's closest to the sun, push on it so much that it actually contorts the night side, the tail end that trails off into space, and presses it together so that when it comes together, the Earth's own magnetosphere becomes energetic and quivery. And then when it goes back to its normal energy state, it releases a bunch of energy in the form of light. And when that happens, the auroras that tend to congregate at the poles can actually show up all over the planet, basically, even very close to the equator.
Yeah, which is crazy. And we'll talk about some of the bigger ones and some of the surprising places they showed up. But so that's the magnetosphere. I mentioned the ionosphere. Mm-hmm. That's sort of I guess, a secondary protection. That is another high layer of the Earth's atmosphere, and that's going to stop all the radiation because it's giving out a tremendous amount of radiation. And if the ionosphere wasn't doing its job and it wasn't there, we would be in big, big trouble here on Earth.
Yeah, we'd be toast. I mean, these are incredibly energetic, fast-traveling particles, close to the speed of light. And they would just shoot right through the tissue in our bodies and do all sorts of damage because they would probably knock all sorts of electrons off of our atoms that make up our cells and our tissue. And we would either develop cancer over the long term or just drop dead from a big enough dose of this stuff. So thank goodness for the ionosphere. I mean, it saves us like John Mayer saved the Grateful Dead. Just in case he's still listening.
There's like a percentage of our audience that's like, yeah, man, preach. And there's a percentage that is like, oh my God, I have to turn this off.
And then I'd say the vast majority are like, who is this John Mayer cat?
Exactly. Is he the guy that dated Jen Aniston?
Probably.
He is.
So you got the magnetosphere, you got the ionosphere, and for the most part, these things are capable of absorbing the worst of the sun's belches and flare-ups and everything under normal circumstances. But even when it is protecting life on Earth, like us animals and the plants and the plankton and the whales, that kind of stuff, life here on Earth, there are things that we humans have developed that can be affected by this space weather, by these geomagnetic storms.
Yeah, I guess, should we talk about the Carrington event, one of the most exciting events?
I thought it was pretty exciting, yes. It's
pretty good. So this is 1859. Like this kind of thing now is pretty magnificent, but I imagine 1859, astronomers were just really, really knocked out by something like this.
They said Zeus's beard.
Yeah, exactly. This is sort of late summer, August, September, and a big solar storm they later called the Carrington event became the strongest one on record. And this is named for a man named Richard Carrington. He was an astronomer, one of England's best at the time. And he was in his observatory and he was hanging out. And it was a sunny day and he was working with his telescope and he's projecting this image of the sun on a screen and drawing. There were cameras at the time, but I guess the most, accurate or efficient way to capture what he saw was to draw this stuff that he's observing. And that's what he was doing on September 1st, 1859.
Yeah. And while he was drawing the stuff, he saw that some of these sunspots that he was mapping, I guess, started to grow really, really bright. And he got really excited because he'd been doing this for a while, and this wasn't something he'd seen before. So he jumped up and he ran to get a friend who was going to witness this
Big
with
mistake.
him. Yeah, he said he was gone for a minute tops. And when he came back, he found that these brilliant flashes of light had already started to weaken.
Can you imagine?
He was a little bummed about this, but he and his buddy still watched these flares go, get lower and lower and then turn into pinpoints and then vanish. So what he saw, he was the first person to record a solar flare. No one had ever seen anything like it before. And that was at 11:23 a.m. It was done. It finished. And then nothing. That was it. Until the wee hours of the morning later that night, the morning of the next day later that night, which I always just find endlessly confusing.
What, that it took that long?
No, that it's that night is the next morning. For some reason, it just breaks my brain every time. I realize how sad that is to admit, but it's true.
Yeah, so in the wee hours, the skies put on a light show all over the earth. Red, green, purple auroras. Very brilliant, very exciting. Newspapers, you could read the newspaper at night. They saw this stuff in Hawaii, El Salvador, and the Bahamas.
They saw the auroras in the Bahamas.
I know, isn't that nuts?
That is nuts.
There were neighboring towns that thought that Shelbyville was on fire. Springfield thought Shelbyville was on fire, and vice versa.
Yeah.
There were birds chirping because they thought it was dawn. There was a brick mason crew in South Carolina that got up and, they were 2 beers in going to work when they realized that, hey, it's the middle of the night.
Right.
And they looked at each other and said, man, this is 125 years before Ghostbusters.
Oh, nice. Very nice, Chuck.
Yeah, well, it seemed canned then because it was premeditated.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. How about this? I'm going to give you a huge, hearty, surprised laugh, and we'll edit out the conversation before. How about that?
All right, ready? And they all looked at each other 2 beers in and said, Ghostbusters won't even come out for another 125 years.
What? Oh, my God. I did not see that coming, dude. How long has it been since we talked about
I don't know. That's perfect, and we'll just fix that all in editing.
That's great. Thanks, Chuck. Whew. I need a couple of beers myself after that one. So one of the other things that really went haywire was the telegraph system, right?
Yeah.
Because this is 1859, and the telegraphs were the leading edge, not bleeding edge. You taught me that's totally wrong. The leading edge of technology of telecommunications at the time. And these telegraph lines depended on currents being sent over wires. And so those wires were overloaded by this geomagnetic storm, so much so that sparks were shooting off of the telegraphs. Operators were getting shocked and burned. The telegraph paper was catching on fire when it was nearby.
It's like a movie.
And then it was very much like a movie. All this is happening all over the world at the same time. It's just crazy. It's the very, very early morning of the next day after the Carrington event, right? So one of the things that got me was they unplugged the batteries to these things, the telegraphs, and they found that the wires were still so energetic with electricity from the geomagnetic storm that they could still send telegraphs. Even though they had no power of their own, they were able to send telegrams over the telegraph line, even with them disconnected from the batteries.
That's the fact of the show to me.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Thanks for letting me have that one.
I mean, they must have thought it was haunted or something.
I think so.
In
I also
1859,
read, sure,
the plug is unplugged and it's still working.
They were like, Zeus's beard. This is crazy. There's another thing, too. Some telegraph operators couldn't send telegraphs even though the lines were active because the magnetism in these currents was so strong that the armature, the thing that they tap up and down, was like fused to the plate beneath it. It was just the magnetism was so strong. It wouldn't move.
I thought you were going to say they thought it was possessed. So they left the room screaming.
They did. Zeus's beard.
Oh, we got the third one in there.
Yeah.
Should we take another break?
Oh, almost. So one other thing. Let's just wrap the Carrington event up real quick, okay?
All right.
So 10 a.m., the effects of this whole crazy event are done. And, it gets talked about. This is a worldwide event. But it's kind of like treated as a scientific anomaly, right? People understand what happened and what caused it and why it happened over the years as we learn more and more about solar flares and coronal mass ejections. But it didn't become apparent that this Carrington event was actually a harbinger of like real, much bigger problems that could happen to us alive on Earth today until the 70s. And maybe we'll take a break, Chuck, and come back and talk about how that could be problematic right after this.
Great. Hey, everybody. Here's a fact for you. In the United States, there is a break-in every 26 seconds, and that means that somewhere right now, an intruder is getting closer. And the problem with most security systems is that they only alert you after the break-in has started, and that's too late.
Well, that's what makes SimpliSafe different. They use alerts. SimpliSafe's U.S.-based live agents, they identify threats on your property and help deter them before they actually break in. So the intruder never gets into your house. The crime is stopped before it even starts.
That's right. And another great thing about SimpliSafe is they have no long-term contracts. They give you peace of mind and great value with their monitoring deterrence plans because they just start at about $1 a day.
Yeah, SimpliSafe sent us a setup years back, and I still use mine every day.
Yeah, and apparently setup, you can do it by yourself in under 30 minutes, so it's a really good value and it doesn't take long.
So if you want to experience the SimpliSafe peace of mind, you can take advantage of the SimpliSafe discount offered to Stuff You Should Know listeners. Right now, you can get 50% off your new system by visiting simplisafe.com/stuff. That's half off at simplisafe.com/stuff. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Work can be a little weird. One minute you're in a meeting that could have been an email. The next you're trying to decode corporate jargon that somehow means nothing. And don't even get us started on the quick sync that turns into a 45-minute deep dive.
Yeah, well, the truth is figuring out your career isn't always straightforward. Whether you're trying to grow, pivot, or just stay relevant, it can feel like you're navigating it all on your own. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in.
That's right. LinkedIn can help you grow your career, helping you confidently navigate your path with insights, ideas, and inspiration from your professional community. You can stay up to date with the latest trends in your field, connect with people who get it, and discover opportunities tailored to your goals, your experience, and what actually matters to you.
Whether you're looking for something new or just trying to grow where you are, LinkedIn gives you the tools and connections to move forward with confidence. Because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more. Hey everybody, we're here to talk to you about Wayfair, who believes that spaces should be functional, they should be comfortable, they should be well designed, and they can be well designed by you with their help.
Your updated space should feel more comfortable, inviting, and practical for everyday use. And we're talking about outdoor seating. We're talking about grills. We're talking about major appliances. If you need storage solutions, Wayfair can help you out. Patio lighting, rugs, decor. It is your one-stop shop for home.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting nice out, so it's time to think about living outdoors for the next few months. And Wayfair knows that outdoor furniture, it's heavy, it's intimidating to assemble. So Wayfair has stepped in and said, we're going to handle the hard part so you don't have to.
That's right. You can shop Wayfair Verified, your shortcut to the good stuff. And that means their team of product specialists are going to vet everything by hand using a 10-point inspection, testing things like, quality materials, functionality, and features, and even how long it takes to build that piece of furniture. And the overall experience save time, reduce hassle, hassle and improved convenience.
Patio season is here, and these deals won't last. So head to wayfair.com right now to get your outdoor space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey everybody, I want to talk to you a little bit about Tide Evo because it represents over 10 years of innovation and product development. Tide Evo is a first-of-its-kind technology where tens of thousands of minuscule fibers are spun together to form a 6 times powerful layer packed with scrubbers, brighteners, pre-treaters, and fresheners. And that's going to deliver a breakthrough clean that's so powerful it feels like magic.
Yeah, it is kind of like magic. Tide Evo is revolutionary. A 100% concentrated, waterless laundry tile that's made of compressed microfiber soap layers rather than liquid or powder. And it's not like pods or sheets because it uses 6 layers of detergent fibers to deliver superior cold water cleaning without plastic packaging of any kind. And it provides a mess-free, lightweight solution that dissolves lickety-split. So whenever you run into a laundry challenge, turn to Tide Evo. It's revolutionary. It's magic. Try new Tide Evo. Real laundry magic.
All right, so the world changed a lot between the Carrington event in the mid-1800s and in the 1970s when scientists had a much bigger handle on what this kind of thing meant. Mm-hmm. And in the 1970s, the whole world was very dependent on electric power, you might be surprised to learn.
Right.
And they knew, like, hey, if we had another Carrington event today, it could be a big deal because, and we'll get to this later, but like we got a lot of metal on this earth mm-hmm. and we use the earth to ground everything basically with ground wires. Mm-hmm. And that creates a unique problem potentially if we had another event like this.
Yeah. The fact that we chose to use the earth as a ground to where our grounding wires go from our electrical components, tie into a metal rod that's driven into the earth so that whenever excess electricity is generated by the electronics that we use, it gets distributed through the grounding wire to the earth where it dissipates. That makes all of our electronics vulnerable to a geomagnetic storm, because in a geomagnetic storm, the ground itself can become magnetized. And even more than that, Chuck, we've buried a lot of metal infrastructure from like pipes to cables to all sorts of metal stuff is snaking through the ground right now. And when the ground becomes magnetized in a geomagnetic storm, it can carry really powerful currents through all the infrastructure, up through the grounds, through the grounding wires and into our electronic components, including things like power transformers, and overload them to the point where they fail catastrophically.
Yeah, and this sort of happened in August 1972. There was a big solar flare that knocked out our long-distance phone communication across Illinois. So that was just sort of an early example of like, hey, this can actually have a real effect here on Earth. Mm-hmm. And that was a big one. It took, I think, about 15 hours to hit Earth, whereas it usually takes 2 to 3 days.
Right.
It also set off these, it was during Vietnam, obviously, and we had magnetic sea mines in harbors around Vietnam. It exploded those. Yeah. So I don't know if they were supposed to be like secretly there, and if that was kind of like oops, sorry about that, or if they knew that they were there and they just went off. But either way, that was a pretty scary scene.
It was, and apparently it was a mystery for a long time until somebody finally figured out why those sea mines all went off. They connected it to to that coronal mass ejection, I believe.
Yeah, but you can imagine like all the damage that could occur. Like even if you're just talking about the electrical grid, mm-hmm. if it really blew out, it wouldn't be just like a blackout. Like it would destroy parts of our electrical grid such that it would take. It's not like, hey, let me go out and fix this over a few hours during a snowstorm. It might take weeks or months or even up to a year if we had a big enough like blast to the grid.
Yeah, because I mean, it is by necessity, our electrical grid is interconnected. So if one part of it gets overloaded, that can overload other parts that are connected. And if you have a whole city without power for, let's say Los Angeles went out of power for a month, what would happen? What would be the outcome of that? I mean, you couldn't do anything. Pretty. And when you start thinking like that, you start thinking about, oh my God, like think about all the stuff we do that requires electricity. Everything we do requires electricity in some form or fashion. And so to be without electricity in a major city or multiple major cities for even a couple of weeks is just unthinkable. But that's the level of vulnerability we're at because of the way that our electrical components are set up because they're grounded.
Yeah, and not just like a chain reaction, apocalyptic kind of activity, but just monetary loss. Like the economic and financial damage for the city of Los Angeles to be without power for a month would be astounding.
Right.
So, there's stuff they could do. They could fit some very critical transformers with resistors and capacitors, but these things are like hundreds of $1,000s per transformer. So that's just too much money. So they're not doing that.
No, they're not. And I wonder if there's going to be like some close call that makes everybody be like, okay, we need to invest this in our infrastructure. Or, are we going to figure out some other means of, a backup system? I'm not sure.
Or that happens to like Topeka, and then everyone says, hey, if this happened in Topeka, and they lost, several $100s, and that's really mean.
I was going to say, do you think Topeka would do it?
So mean.
Do you think that would convince anybody?
I don't know. I'm so sorry, Topeka, but you get my point. If it happened somewhere sort of in a smaller area, then the big cities might say, hey, that means it could happen to us, the people who really matter.
Right. The coastal elites would stroke their beards and cluck their tongues. Yeah. So yeah, there doesn't seem to be a lot of initiative right now to figure this out. And we're just kind of sitting ducks in a weird way. It's nothing, I don't think it's anything to lose sleep over, but it's really surprising. Like the more I dug into this, the more I was like, this could kind of be a thing someday. And it's not just, the electrical grid here on Earth alone is all that would be affected by that. There things we rely on out in space, like satellites. A bad enough geomagnetic storm could affect satellites in a lot of ways. So our GPS systems would be messed up. Or if you use GPS for really important stuff, like say landing an airplane, you could be in big trouble. And if you're also on planes, the high frequency radio communications they use to stay in contact with the ground, especially when they're out over the ocean or something like that, that can be disrupted by a solar flare or a coronal mass ejection too.
Yeah. Or what about a satellite maybe that is, there are thousands of satellites up there, but, and if a radio satellite went out, it would be bad, but people could live. But what if it affected a satellite that's in charge of aiding in national defense? Things could get a little bit scary if those satellites were down. Or, spacecraft. There's spacecraft up there, and they use satellites to help orient themselves and keep themselves safe. There's an ISS, although the ISS supposedly is protected, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The big threat to astronauts from coronal mass ejections and solar flares is when they're out on spacewalks, when they're doing like labor, say outside the ISS or something like that. Just like here on Earth, if we didn't have the ionosphere or the magnetosphere, we would be in big trouble. Astronauts can be in big trouble. The ISS orbits within the Earth's magnetosphere, but it's beyond the ionosphere. So they are a little more exposed. On the ISS, it's shielded, so they're not nearly as exposed. But out on a spacewalk, if it were a really bad coronal mass ejection, they could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, like Sandra What's-Her-Face in that movie.
Exactly.
What is her last name? I can't remember. Sandra Bernhardt? No.
Sandra Bullock.
Sandy Duncan?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
Right.
Sandra Bernhardt.
In that movie, Space Trot.
Space craziness.
Did you like that movie, Gravity?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I've only seen it once.
Me too.
I don't know if I would have cast her necessarily, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Or George Clooney. I don't think I would have cast either of them.
I mean, I had some issues. I mean, it was a magnificent looking movie, but I think in the end, I had some issues with the story and the script being not good enough for how great of a movie it was trumped up to be.
Did was that by the guy who did The Revenant?
I think so. Yeah.
So Yubi and I went and saw The Revenant in Hawaii once when we were on vacation. Because what else is there to do in Hawaii on vacation but go see movies? And we saw The Revenant, and this person next to us was there by himself, and he was so upset by Tom Hardy's character and just how evil he was that this guy was like telling him he was the devil. He had his hand up at the screen and was praying against Tom Hardy.
Wow.
He was really affected by Tom Hardy's character, which made the movie like even more thrilling because we would look at the movie and then we would watch this person reacting to the movie too. So it was something to see.
Yeah, I saw that once as well, and I saw it on tour with you. It was either Phoenix or San Diego. We'd have to look at the dates, but I just remember there being palm trees. I think it was San Diego maybe when we did a show at that spooky abandoned church.
Man,
Remember
I'm
that?
convinced still to this day that that's the church from The Prince of Darkness, that John Carpenter movie.
That was a weird show because that was the one, I know you remember, that guy sat on the front row and shot the whole thing with a video camera.
And he looked like he was mad too, like he was documenting evidence or something to use against us.
We both were like, I think we were so caught off guard, we didn't know what to say. We're like, do we call this guy out and say, sir, can you please put away your camera?
Yeah.
So we just soldiered on.
Yeah, we were pinned down by the unrelenting glare of the lens.
Then he went back to his apartment and showed it on TV to his roommate, who was the Tom Hardy guy.
Right. And that guy was like, these guys are the devil. I'm praying against them.
Oh, man. All right. So, yes, back to the show.
Oh, yeah?
Where are we? Oh, here's the deal. We're talking about astronauts and satellite operations and GPS. This isn't stuff that we've just said, well, this probably could happen. A lot of it is, but this actually has happened. We mentioned the thing in Illinois with the phone systems, and then in the 2003, that CME, that did disrupt satellites, and that did disrupt high-frequency radio communications that aviation relies on, and that did black out a city in Sweden.
Malmo. Everyone says, no, not Malmo. Yeah, Malmo,
That's
everybody.
right.
So the kind of thing can happen. It does happen. It's just never happened on such a massive scale. They figured out from looking at Arctic ice cores, apparently highly energetic particles leave remnants in nitrates frozen in the ice at the poles. And by examining these cores, they can see how bad or how often or how many solar flares have hit Earth in the past. And they figured out that the Carrington event is like a 500-year solar flare. And it happened about 150, 170 years ago. Hopefully we're in the clear. The key is we're still figuring out the dynamics of the sun and solar activity, so we're not exactly certain that maybe we're not due for a 1,000-year solar flare. We're just starting to figure this out. But we are figuring it out. That's step one. And we also actually have space weather forecasters here on Earth at NOAA and at the National Weather Service. There are people whose job it is to track solar activity and to predict things like coronal mass ejections and solar flares so that people can, like utility companies can maybe take steps to mitigate the worst effects eventually. I think right now we've got like an 8 to 10 minute heads up. So that's not enough. But as we get to understand it a little more, we'll have more warning time. And, you know, astronauts can plan their spacewalks when they're out doing stuff like building future space colonies. This is all going to come into play for that too.
Yeah. So hopefully they can get that up to at least over an hour. That would help.
Sure. So again, it's nothing to lose sleep over. That's not the point of this episode. It's more just kind of like, gee whiz, this is amazing by Zeus's beard. I've never heard of anything like this.
The old fourth reference.
Yeah, surprising fourth one. Did not see that coming, did you?
Did not.
You got anything else?
I got nothing else.
All right, everybody. Chuck said he's got nothing else. So that's it for this episode, which means it's time for listener mail.
Oh, let me see here. I've actually got quite a few today, which is in abundance.
We've been getting more than usual, haven't we?
Yeah, we've been getting good ones. All right, I'll choose this one.
Okay.
I'm going to call it Rush Girl. Hey guys, I've been a long-time listener, but I've never had a reason to write until your recent Fort Knox episode. In it, you refer to the joke you had made about women not liking the Three Stooges. By the way, I got a little grief for that, and also support for that, weirdly. Chuck made the comment that it wasn't like he had said something true, but there being no women Rush fans. I immediately laughed because my future mother-in-law is the biggest Rush fan. I love this lady. She and my fiance have a bond over this band. In contrast, I thought the band was made up just for the movie I Love You Man.
Wow.
Yeah, Megan did not know Rush was a real band. She thought that was a fake band in a movie.
Megan, you have a whole world ready to open up to you.
Yes, you do. I guess that they fit the trope. According to my fiance, they call female Rush fans Getty corns, which sounds made up, but he swears it's true. Getty corns, I don't get that. But
like a unicorn, maybe?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Or it could be candy corn.
No. I'm sure it's like the Geddy Lee unicorn mashup. I like that. I didn't get that until just now, so thank you.
Sure.
At any rate, I can recognize the joke, and I'm not coming after you for that. I just found it funny that all the stereotypical male bands you could have picked, you chose my mother-in-law's favorite. Thanks for all you do. Your podcast has gone a long way toward helping me de-stress after a day of teaching during COVID, and that is from Megan Power. And Megan, thank you, and big ups to your mother-in-law for being a Getty corn.
Yeah, not to be confused with candy corn.
No.
Well, if you want to be like Megan and let us know how we just totally blew your mind somehow or other, we'd love hearing that stuff. You can put it in an email and wrap it up, spank it on the bottom, and send it off to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
The next time you end up with something on your shirt, don't turn to your usual detergent. Check out Tide Evo. Tide Evo represents over 10 years of innovation in product development. It's a revolutionary 100% concentrated waterless laundry tile made of compressed microfiber soap layers rather than liquid or powder. It's not pods and it's not sheets. It uses 6 layers of detergent fibers to deliver superior cold water cleaning without plastic packaging. It's mess-free, lightweight, and dissolves quickly. Try new Tide Evo. Real laundry magic. Every parent should know the car ride soundtrack. Are we there yet? How much longer? I'm bored. Well, if you're taking an extensive car ride anywhere and you've downloaded the Lingo Kids app prior to leaving the house, you may experience something strange, right, Chuck?
That's right. You may experience silence from the back seat. Your kid may go an entire car ride without asking once if they were there yet. How about that? And by chance of miracle, they may even ask if you could drive longer.
Yeah, that's the magic in Lingo Kids. Over 4,000 interactive games, songs, and shows, including their favorite Disney characters. It turns the longest drives into the easiest ones, and honestly, you won't understand why you didn't download it sooner.
That's right. Lingo Kids is the #1 entertainment platform for young kids, and it's free to download. Or go plus with the Lingo Kids subscription and unlock even more content your kids won't be able to get enough of. You can save up to 60% on the yearly plan. Just search Lingo Kids in the App Store or Google Play. Lingo Kids, everything kids love.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.